Sausage.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of First, the show where I, Marcus Ness, gives you my first impressions on a game, and this here episode is all about Souldiers, a metroidvania with a lot of promise that shoots itself in the foot with some of the worst design decisions I've seen in a while. Quite literally, if you're the bowman I forget what the class is called, I'll get to it a little later. Because of this, though, these bad design choices, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the game because none of it matters when one thing in particular kills the entirety of my ability to enjoy the game. What's that one thing? RNG. This may only be a problem with the Archer class, but that's the class I decided to play as, even though I never play as an Archer class usually. But the one in Soldiers seems so enticing. How could I resist? How could I not give it a shot? Finally! What a fucking mistake that was. But that's the only class I can speak on. As the Archer, you have a ranged attack in the form of shooting arrows, obviously. 3 arrows, that is, before waiting for them to recharge, which you can shorten the cooldown of by attacking and landing hits on enemies with your bow, which you throw like a boomerang, a mechanic that sounded way cooler than it actually is, and is what sold me on going against my usual inclinations to give the Archer class a go. But the range on your boomerang attack is so short it feels borderline useless at the time. Alright, boomer attack, boy. However, the real problem is the RNG tied to shooting arrows. That's it. It's not that it's too random or too this or that, it's the fact that it's even a thing at all. RNG is always a dangerous thing to put in your game. It's something that can easily ruin an otherwise great game by making the player feel like what they do doesn't matter because as high as their skill or abilities may be, they're ultimately a prisoner to the RNG gods who always get the last laugh. For me, RNG should only exist in turn-based games, whether they be strategy games, RPG games, or what ever. But in a game with real-time combat, a game where you are in direct control of attacking enemies directly, RG feels like a slap in the face, and Soldiers slapped the fucking shit out of me, man. Holy shit, it was just like, oh, fuck, man, Jesus Christ. I just actually slapped myself. I was gonna fake it. What? The number of times I shot multiple arrows at an enemy only to see the visual hit but read miss is more than I can count because I can only count to 4. The reality is the number of times this should have happened is 0. When I'm in control, attacking an enemy in what looks like a 2D action platformer, only to see my attacks not hitting because of RNG, I immediately lose all interest. And that's exactly what happened to me with Soldiers. I don't care if the rest of the game is amazing because the RNG destroys it all and there's nothing random about that. Sure, Soldiers may look fantastic, and sure, if you take away the RNG, it plays incredibly well. Once you adjust the settings of movement to the D-pad and item usage to the analog stick, it's borderline unplayable with the default controls of the opposite, but you can't ignore the RNG, so none of it matters. I even think the story is kind of interesting, and y'all know how I feel about story in most games. I'm harsh, probably too harsh at times, but again, doesn't matter, because RNG. The real question, though, is RNG also a problem with the 2 other classes, one being a traditional warrior class and the other being a mage class? If RNG is only a thing with the Archer class, then fuck me, I guess, but if it's a thing with all classes, then fuck you too. Either way, my experience playing as the Archer left a bad enough taste in my mouth that I don't care enough to find out, and that's the real shame, because there may be an alternate timeline where I love Soldiers, but that time has passed in mine. Speaking of time, I think it's about time I shut up and ended this episode. How about you? I'm sure you're sick of me as well. I'm already sick of me. I'm always sick of me. Alright. Anywho, that will do it for this here episode of First. Once again, I am Marcus Nez. Y'all can find me on Twitter and pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. You can find all my links of import over at pixelatedsausage.com/PXS. If you'd like to see me streaming games like Soldiers and so much more, you can do so over at twitch.tv/PXSausage. Of course, like, subscribe, hit the bell, and all that jazz if you are watching the video version of this and not just listening to the audio. And if you like any of this stuff I do and would like to support me in my nonsense, you can go over to patreon.com/PXS and support me that way. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoy this here episode, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Bye!